Hello and welcome to episode number 44 of the Running on Carbs podcast. I am your host, Coach Val. And today, as I promised, this is a very exciting and special episode because up till now, episodes number 1 through 43 have just been me talking and sharing information with you. But today I have a very special guest, and this is my very first interview show. And so I am so excited because I've been talking about having this interview with my guest for quite a while. And finally, I said, we have to put this on the books and we just have to get on board and do this because it's such important information. So I want to introduce my special guest, Dr. Julie Jerkins. She is my personal acupuncturist. So I see Dr. Julie on a regular basis, and she has helped me sit through my serious stress fracture injury, my back pain issues that I've had forever, and a number of other things. And now I am on the mend. And now I see Dr. Julie for just overall general health. So I wanted to bring her special skills to you so that you can understand what acupuncture can do for you as an endurance runner. So let me tell you a little bit about Dr. Julie, and then I will let her introduce herself and we will welcome her officially. So Dr. Julie has been practicing acupuncture for over 20 years and has treated thousands of patients with varying ailments all over the world. Although she treats all conditions, she's a specialist in sports injuries, fertility, menopause, and pain, which is specifically, why I chose her when I was looking for an acupuncturist. Dr. Julie's interest in health, fitness, and nutrition started at an early age. She was in the Kalamazoo Ballet of Arts. I'm going to say that totally wrong. Kalamazoo Ballet Arts Company, and she also trained with the Boston Ballet. Dr. Julie is no stranger to running either. We talk about it often. She was on the University of Michigan varsity cross-country track team. And while at the University of Michigan, she received a BA in French and a minor in pre-med. But the traditional medicine route didn't feel like the right fit. So she was on vacation in Hawaii, and that's when she experienced acupuncture for the first time. And it changed her life at that point. And so when she came back off of holiday, she decided to go back to school and study acupuncture in depth. So that is quite a history, quite a background. I learned something new about you when I read this. So welcome, Dr. Julie. So happy to have you here.
Hello. Thank you for inviting me. It's always fun to
So
talk with you, Valerie.
I know we have so much fun. We like the people that are in the other rooms when I come to see you. They're like, "Hey, you got to be quiet." I'm like, "Oh yeah, shh."
I always plan extra time when you come in too, because I want to talk to you
Oh no,
more.
now I know all your secrets.
I enjoy it.
Uh, so
Yeah.
so I found you because Dr. Julie actually is not my very first acupuncturist that I went to see. I actually had a knee injury from running earlier before I found you. And I also actually, even way back before that, I had carpal tunnel when I was in my 20s. And I was introduced to acupuncture at that time. They sent me to an acupuncturist. But what I really learned about acupuncture is that you have to find the right practitioner, for you and for your ailment. And so the other practitioners that I found, they were either like too light or they were too aggressive. But when I found you were absolutely perfect. It's like you know exactly how to place the needles. They're not too aggressive, they're not too soft. And I get such relief from it. And so I want to know, and I've been seeing you for nearly 2 years, we discovered. And so I want to know a bit about, how does acupuncture work in the body when it comes to that? Like, why is there too soft, too light?
Mhm.
How
Good
does that work?
question.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, one thing, like, okay, it's kind of like your hairdresser. You have to find the right one. They're all qualified, if they're licensed. But yeah, it's what they kind of, we're all kind of like GPs, general practitioners. So, but we do kind of have our gravitation towards things that we enjoy. So you might find one that's more experienced in what you're dealing with just because they've learned from it or studied more of it because they were interested. So being a runner, being a dancer, I am interested in helping other athletes. And as far as what makes, it's a little bit what the training is as well. I didn't know before I went to acupuncture school, there's different styles of acupuncture. So there is traditional Chinese medicine, which is the usual. That's what most schools teach. And that is Chinese technique, which is a little more aggressive, like thicker needles, more stimulation, which can be really good. Sometimes you need that. And then there's also Japanese style, which is a little more gentle, less invasive, thinner needles, less time that they're left in. I do a blend because I've been in practice for a while. I do a blend depending on what the person needs and also the area and what we're working on. There's another technique that's orthopedic needling or sports medicine acupuncture, and I trained with the person who wrote the book on that. Like started it. And I also worked as an intern in his office for a while. So we worked with professional athletes, people who would fly from Las Vegas or people who were playing professional sports here in the area. So I did learn a lot. And I also learned some advanced massage techniques also. Being the assistant, I got to do that. But now I know it. I get to do it all myself. So
That's very interesting.
So yeah, it depends on the training, what they gravitate towards. Also kind of, yeah, like I said, with the hairdresser is personality too. It's always nice to like your acupuncturist. It ends up being, in that case, like a GP. They get to know you and kind of grow up with you and your kids and all that, which is nice.
Yeah.
I've been seeing my acupuncturist for over 20 years. So
Oh, wow.
yeah.
Oh, wow. That's interesting. Yeah, it's like a hairdresser, right? You can't do your own acupuncture.
Yeah, I can to some extent, but I can't do a good back treatment on myself because I can't reach there. And I've tried, believe me, and I just got bruises.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
so yeah, that's what makes the difference between someone who's more Chinese technique, someone who's more Japanese, someone who knows orthopedic needling, and then there's also esoteric acupuncture, which treats the spirit. So that's a little different as well. Yeah.
I hear a lot about, like, in Facebook groups and things like that, people will say, "Oh, have you tried dry needling?" And I know you and I have talked a little bit about that, and I've asked you
Yeah.
about that before, but I'd love for you to share a little bit about the differences between, like, dry needling at a physical therapist office versus
Right.
acupuncture.
Right. So that's a good segue.
Mhm.
Dry needling is okay. So number one, the physical therapists do not have as much training as acupuncturists. So they can, I think it's only a 6-month program, might be a year. Acupuncture takes 5 years. Okay. So, and then when you get dry needling at a physical therapist, they insert the needle into the trigger point, and then the trigger point forces the muscle to relax. So it is similar to what I'm doing with the orthopedic needling, because sometimes I will do that. And sometimes that trigger point coincides with an acupuncture point. So there's one right up here on your shoulder. It'll release the trapezius, and also it's also GB21 if you know acupuncture. So then you get the double benefit. Okay, so the with someone just doing the trigger points is they're not balancing the whole body. So you can release the muscle, but it's going to tighten right back up if you don't do anything else. It'll feel good initially. With acupuncture, because we're doing maybe the trigger points and then also the balancing the whole body, we're working on keeping it away. It's not going to tighten back up because we're working on the whole. It's a more complete treatment. It's also more balanced, and we also have more training. So dry needling is a pet peeve of mine.
Yeah.
People think
I can understand that. I can understand that completely. Yeah, especially when you're talking about the amount of training, because I know you've done a lot of training, you've done a lot of traveling too.
Right.
For your
And you
training.
need to be board certified. You also need to keep your license current, la, la, la. I'm sure they do for physical therapy as well, but it's a different technique. Same with MDs that do acupuncture. It's an adjunct. It's usually not their complete focus unless they went to acupuncture school for the whole time. It's completely different medicine. It's not, you can make some associations in your mind, but it's completely a way of diagnosing and doing.
Yeah. What I find interesting also is that when I had this stress fracture and I was so averse to, number one, surgery, I didn't want surgery and I didn't want all the medicines that they wanted to put me on. And so my MD, my medical doctor, uh, gave me a prescription, basically, a recommendation to acupuncture. So, and I was surprised at that. And I don't know that all insurances offer such a thing, but it seems like it's a little more commonplace these days. And so I was wondering what you thought about that, with it, is acupuncture becoming a little more mainstream these days rather than how it used to be just, holistic and that was separate and, it wasn't covered by insurance. Is it becoming more mainstream now?
Yes, definitely. The word is out, so it keeps spreading. I grew up in the Midwest, and it takes a little longer from the coast to get the information from the coast to the interior. So we're lucky that we live in California, in that, people are more aware of it, but there are also there's more advances as far as insurance covering it and getting on board. One of our biggest fans is the military. So veterans are usually covered with acupuncture. The VA just became the biggest fan of acupuncture because it helps with PTSD and also pain, chronic pain. But once that very traditional conservative group decided, hey, this is worthwhile, then other people started paying attention. Insurance, it's hit or miss. Sometimes it will cover, sometimes it won't. Usually it'll cover musculoskeletal problems, which is good for us runners because, leg, back, ankles can be affected. But it's not going to cover something like stress, fertility, other internal medicine. But that's okay. It's a balance. And a lot of acupuncturists will or will not accept insurance. I do accept insurance, but some people won't.
Yeah. So kind of segueing a little bit from what you just said about runners. So I know that you're a runner yourself. So from a runner perspective, what types of injuries do you see kind of come across your table when
Okay.
you get a runner or an athlete or someone like that?
Yeah.
Specifically
Yeah.
runners, if you see very many of them.
Yes. Yeah, I do see a fair amount of runners. Usually it's that tightness from your low back. You go on those long runs, and then after time, the tightness in the low back. I do have some runners that just come once a month for maintenance because that keeps their back from tightening up and then causing further problems. Sciatica. So sciatica's usually originates in the low back, but it's pain in your buttock or down your leg. That can be one that'll flare up. I suffered from hamstring pain. And so I've gotten acupuncture for that because it flares up here and there. It's just probably an old tendonitis. And what else? Ankles. I've twisted my ankles multiple times, stepping in potholes, stepping on acorns that roll. So
The dangers of being a runner.
I know.
Those
It's so
pesky
worth
potholes.
it. Yes. Well, I think it was in a horse field. It was like a divot from a horse hoof. Anyway, Yeah. So ankles, what else from runners?
What about knees? I know a lot of people
Oh,
complain about
yeah.
knee pain. Do
Yes.
they come to you
I
with
don't know why I
that?
forgot that, but you're right.
Yeah.
Yes. Um, knee pain. I've helped a lot of people try to avoid surgery on their knees and have been
Mhm,
successful. Some that eventually had to get surgery. Um, but you can do up till the surgery and then after to help recover more quickly.
mhm. How can
Yeah.
I ask you
Mhm,
how does acupuncture help with the recovery from,
mhm,
just from different injuries like that? Like, for instance, let's say the
mhm,
surgery. How is acupuncture helping with the
mhm,
surgery recovery?
mhm. So there's always trauma to the area.
Mm, mhm,
So we're going to help any scar tissue heal with less fiber and later not have more problems. Also,
mhm,
we work on the whole body. So we're going to
mhm,
build your blood and your energy to help it heal more quickly and to heal with less pain. And we also work on the pain, obviously, pain, swelling, la, la, la. Immediately after the surgery, we won't go at that site, but we can help the rest of your body deal with it. Later, after like a week or so, then we can go around the site to help the tissues heal, um, get rid of any pain or swelling. Also, we'll want to work on the back and the hip because you're probably limping and things like that
mhm.
are related to it. So,
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Um, and so when I came in, well, not when I came in, because when I came in, I didn't have a stress fracture. We all
mhm,
had to wait around for the results for that one.
mhm, mhm,
But when we found out that I
mhm,
had a stress fracture, I
mhm.
mean, I was coming to you when I was still on crutches.
Yes.
So when when you have a bone stress injury like that, what is
Mhm.
acupuncture doing? Because I can't imagine that acupuncture is healing the bone specifically. So what is it helping when we're doing acupuncture around like a bone stress injury?
So it's helping indirectly. Your body still
Mm,
has to take the nutrients to heal that bone. It is doing
mm,
that, but no one really
mhm.
knows. Maybe someone does exactly how that happens.
Yeah.
Um, so we're helping your body have the nutrients, either with herbal medicine or with the acupuncture by balancing the whole so that it doesn't have something over here. Maybe you're slightly fighting a cold or something. Okay,
Mm,
well, uh, we don't want it to be distracted by this other stuff or having to deal with this, little fire over here while there's this big fire here. So we want to
mhm,
help it focus on that area to help it heal, to create the nutrients that make the bone, that knit, that increase blood flow to the area, that increase the chi, which is your energy. I know that's kind of an odd thing, but um,
I'd love
the
to hear
energy
more
and
about
blood
that. I
flow
mean,
and circulation.
yeah, okay. So qi is like the circulation, or qi is like the energy, or how
Both.
does Mhm,
So chi is the energy, the life force energy in your body.
mhm,
Um, in India, they call it prana. It's just in China, they call it chi,
mm,
CHI or QI.
mhm,
And the chi is its own system. So we all have a circulatory system, nervous system, digestive system. We also have an additional system called the energetic system of the body. So the chi.
mm,
The chi flows through meridians, channels that are kind of like the blood vessels or the digestive channels. Um, but the chi has its own channels, which can affect the other ones, just like the nervous system can affect the digestive system or the circulatory system, and vice versa. So
mhm,
that additional chi channel or meridians, the chi flows through those channels and it goes to all parts of the body. Now it can get blocked, and if it's blocked, you have pain or something's happening. Ailment happens,
mhm,
okay? Just like if you have a blockage of circulation, you're going to be like, oh, my foot fell asleep, or oh, this hurts. So once it gets flowing, the chi, you feel better and it can help heal and you're more balanced.
mm,
Now, other ways to get the chi flowing is, breathing, yogic breathing, light exercise, but sometimes that's just not enough. You need a little more help, or it needs to be more focused. And that's what the acupuncture does.
Yeah. Kinda like when I'm sitting on crutches and I can't move. So,
Exactly.
yeah.
We were working on moving the chi and the circulation to that area that was knitting and where you need all the nutrients to build bone, um,
Mhm.
because you can't really get in there. It's so far in there.
Yeah.
The martial artists also have topicals that they use to help when they injure themselves, to help them heal faster. So there's
Mhm.
topical liniments, and then you can take the internal herbs plus the acupuncture as well.
Mhm.
Yeah,
That's
it's pretty
right. I
cool.
remember I was taking some, different herbs as well
Mhm,
during that
mhm.
time. I forgot. Yeah.
Yes, yeah,
Mhm.
mhm,
To help with all of that.
yeah,
I remember I don't know if you remember this moment, but I remember this one, appointment with you, specifically because it was almost like my turning point in my mind about I always knew acupuncture was helping, but I
mhm,
remember this one time I had, like, it was a real tight knot. Like, I had gone through our treatment and we were done, and you asked me how I was feeling. I'm like, I'm feeling good, but I still have this one little, like, knot, like, right here in my front hip flexor area, like, maybe, like, around the TFL."
mhm.
And you're like, "Hmm, let's try stick a needle in it." I'm like, "Okay." So so I'm like, "That just logically doesn't make sense, but okay." So
Yeah.
I laid back and you just simply put a needle in that spot, and
Mhm,
it did like a little jump, and
mhm,
that pain that had been bothering me for days, like, it was
mhm,
so deep, I couldn't get rid of it, and
mhm,
you did that one spot, it
mhm,
released, and it never came back, and I was like, "Okay, I'm
mhm,
sold."
mhm. Yeah, yeah,
Okay, so we talk a lot about that jump. Can you
yeah.
talk a little bit about that jump? Because that is
Mhm.
like a little miracle right there.
Well, that jump is what we were talking about with the trigger points.
Okay. Ah,
So,
okay.
it was a trigger point. You have to know where they are and also be pretty
Mhm.
exact for it to jump.
Mhm.
But also sometimes you can be exact, but it's not ready to release and it just won't.
Yeah.
Um, so that time, yeah, it was ready to release. And so we were able to do that. Now, often, yeah, some of those points can be a little scary too because they're in, that's near the femoral arteries
Mm,
where we were
mhm.
needling. But if you get it right, then well, don't ever get it wrong if you're properly trained. But you get it right, then you get that jump, and it feels
Yeah.
amazing. It's almost like your muscle goes, ah, you know,
Yeah.
and it's
Yes,
just
exactly.
yeah, it just feels so good. I've had that experience with another person who had a shoulder injury, and his was
Mm,
on the back of the shoulder, the scapula. And
mhm.
from my perspective, you can see the muscle jump even to
Mhm.
release. And it wants to release. But like I said, sometimes stretching isn't enough or massage isn't enough. You have to go in there with the needle um, to release it. And
Mhm.
that's the
Yeah.
beauty of the orthopedic needling. Yeah.
Oh,
And the
okay.
sports medicine needling and what's great
Okay.
for athletes. Mhm.
And I had somewhat of a similar experience, but not quite as, like, abrupt. I didn't have a lot of pain, but I remember one of our
Mhm.
first appointments, and I don't know if I ever told
Mhm.
you about this, but one of our first
Mhm.
appointments, we
Mhm.
were doing a lot of work on my low back,
Mhm.
and I was in the room just on my own relaxing while the needles were doing their work, and I actually had this sensation where my entire back just almost like well, I felt it release, like the
Mhm.
whole lower back just let
Mhm.
go, and
Yes.
it was an amazing feel. I've never had that again, but I don't know if I've
Mhm.
ever
Mhm.
needed it again.
Right.
Like,
Right.
everything just let go. It was one of the early appointments
Mhm.
that we had.
Mhm. I
Yeah.
think you did mention it.
Did
Yeah,
I? Okay, yeah.
that's almost like the combination of the points because I had it bilateral, which means both sides, and then kind of around the low back and pelvis. So
Mhm.
that's one of the main areas that with runners gets very tight.
Yeah.
Just with gravity, the running, the compression. Uh, so it probably was well needed. just but to release the whole thing. But sometimes, yeah, it's all of them together that are kind of working together, and the chi is moving, the energy and the circulation are moving and clearing away, and then finally it breaks free and it relaxes.
Yeah.
Which again, your
That
body wants to heal itself, but sometimes it just needs a little bit of a nudge or a little bit of a help, or here, do it
mhm.
this way.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that was amazing. I mean, if anybody they have any of that tightness in the low back, this is just it's amazing for that. Absolutely
Mhm.
amazing.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
let me see what I wanted to ask you. So we talked about the injuries. So
Mhm.
when can I go back to your story a little bit? Like when you were
Sure.
in Hawaii,
Yeah.
so you had experience with acupuncture at that time. Were you going through like any like pain or anything, or did you just like, oh, I'm on vacation and I'm gonna check it out?
Uh, I had never heard of acupuncture, and at the time I had been living in Alaska. It was the middle of winter, and I caught a terrible cold, just really bad. And probably the worst one of my adult life. I had a 105-degree temperature. My sinuses were really bad. I had a really bad sore throat. And I remember putting cloths on my forehead. And my fever went down to 102, and this is pre-COVID. So when I went down to 102, I thought, oh, I can get on the plane. I'm not going to miss going to Hawaii. So I went to Hawaii, but I still was very sick. And I got there. And yeah, I still felt horrible. They gave me pineapple, and I just about screamed because it burned my throat so bad.
Yes.
Um, and in the hotel lobby, there was a guy. The Honolulu Marathon was going on. I wasn't running
Oh,
the marathon, but they had people in the hotel lobby that were doing massage, and one guy was doing acupuncture.
mm,
So I went over and I said, well, would this help with a cold? And he said, oh, yeah. So within 20 minutes, he got my throat glands that felt like grapefruits down to nothing, completely gone, sore throat
wow.
gone, fever gone. And I felt like I had turned the corner. Like, when you're on the mend, you're not in the
Mhm.
throes of the worst. So I felt like and it was 20 minutes, 20 minutes. And I was just shocked
Amazing.
and astounded. And I thought, aha, this is the medicine I've been looking for. Because I had always
Mhm.
been looking for something natural. I've always been an athlete. So I wanted something natural. Like, when I was pre-med, it didn't jive because I wanted something a little more holistic. But I
Mhm.
wasn't aware of anything until that Hawaii trip.
Mhm.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
that's
That's
what
an
happened.
amazing story. Yeah.
Oh, and the
I mean,
sinuses too. We did the sinus
yeah.
ones that opened my sinuses too. Yeah.
Mhm.
So,
Oh gosh,
yeah.
I mean, I could use that. My family's always had, like, sinus issues, so,
Mine too.
um,
Mhm.
yeah, and so, having that, I mean, that tool, if you will,
Mhm.
but
Yeah.
that holistic tool, because I can't tell you how many medicines and stuff that I've had over the years and things, and it just never as I get older, I get more and more kinda, like, suspicious and averse to
Yeah, or
pharmaceuticals and
sensitive maybe.
medications. Yeah, and I've
Mhm.
always been really sensitive to medicines,
Mhm.
so
Me too.
finding something more natural is just
Mhm.
a blessing.
Mhm.
Yeah.
What I call it is, it's sometimes you don't need the big guns.
Mhm.
So the big guns I'm calling Western medicine. Sometimes you do, like if you need surgery or if you have cancer or you need to cut it out. Okay, then you need the big guns. But sometimes you don't. You need something
Mhm.
less invasive, a little more gentle, that just kind of nudges your body into healing itself. And then that's when the natural medicine comes in, the acupuncture comes in, the PT, and that is the trend now also. So like,
Mhm.
I love antibiotics. They're fantastic. Thank goodness for them.
Yeah.
But, sometimes for something else, you might need not the big guns.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that's a really great way to put it, because you're right. It's like we don't have to choose one or the other.
No.
We've come a long way in science and technology
Mhm.
that we can blend the two and they can work
Absolutely.
together rather
Mhm.
than having these silos when it comes to
Correct.
our health, because we
Yes.
aren't silos. We're whole human beings with a
Mhm.
soul and a purpose and, and
Mhm.
thinking and chi
Right.
and,
Right.
and a physical body also. And
Right.
so that can be injured,
Correct.
as we found out.
Right.
So,
Right. Yeah. And when I
um
went to study in China, their
mhm.
hospitals have it integrated. They have one
Ah,
wing for Western medicine and one for Chinese medicine. And people just go back and forth. Or we watched one doctor talk to a gentleman who had a cough. And she said, okay, before I prescribe the herbs, you go over, get a chest x-ray. He comes back 20 minutes later with chest x-ray, not 3 weeks later. And he shows it to her and she's like, okay, well then we've ruled these out. So here's your herbs, go and fill them. That's
mhm.
how it should be. It should be working
Yeah.
together, the best of
Yeah.
both, you
Yeah,
know.
I love that.
And you try
Um,
less invasive and then go up more and more, especially with knees or something.
mhm,
See if we can avoid the surgery. We probably can do that. But if it
mhm.
gets too bad, then okay, then get the replacement.
Yeah, then you've had the
Mhm.
opportunity to try something that,
Right.
like you said, is less invasive,
Mhm.
and I'll bet that, many, many cases, I hesitate to put a percentage on it, but I'm sure there's many, many cases that can
Mhm.
avoid that surgery, and
Absolutely.
I
Mhm.
always have to go back to my own experience, but,
Mhm.
when I had that stress fracture,
Mhm.
the emergency room doctor wanted to talk to me about surgery,
Wow.
and that's all he wanted to talk to me about,
Mhm.
and thankfully, I had known over the weekend that it was a
Mhm.
stress fracture. Like, I got my MRI results early enough that I could
Mhm.
jump on the computer and start doing some research ahead of time.
Careful
So
with
I
that.
so I knew, based on my own background and knowledge about
Mhm.
anatomy and stuff from my coach training,
Mhm.
I knew the parts of the body where this fracture was, and so I was able to
Mhm.
look it up and see,
Mhm.
oh, a conservative approach can work. You don't
Right.
necessarily have to have surgery if there's no displacement. And so
Right.
when he's talking to me about surgery, I'm like, no.
Mhm.
No, I feel very confident it can be, healed with conservative approach. And so
Mhm.
eventually
Mhm.
he listened. And when I got to the orthopedic doctor a week later, not in the
Mhm.
ER, the first thing he said is, "Oh, yeah, based on the location of the fracture, we can treat this with a conservative approach. You're on crutches." So,
Excellent.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then, of course,
Yeah.
that's when I bumped up all my appointments with you.
But you're also very knowledgeable and compliant too, though.
Mhm.
Um, I like that about you. It makes you an ideal patient. But
Thank you.
yeah, you do your research on, oh, these movements, these exercises, and I remember you doing that, are going to help me
Mhm.
specifically for what I'm
Mhm.
dealing with. And then you do them.
Mhm.
So, yeah, those play a part too. But
Mhm. So here, let's talk about the some people that are listening to this that are
Mhm.
thinking, does it hurt? I'm scared of
Mhm.
needles.
Right.
I'll bet we probably hear that quite a lot, I would guess. Like
Mhm.
maybe people are a little scared to go to acupuncture because they think it's going to hurt.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
what can someone expect from like the first time going to
Mhm.
acupuncture,
Okay.
with you?
So, yes, everyone always asks that question. So, no, it does not hurt.
Okay,
Okay.
I
Now,
know that,
that
but I
being
wanted you to
said,
tell them
yes.
that too.
The needles, it's too bad we don't have a different word for it. They're not
Mm,
like syringe needles. Um, Syringes need to be thicker because you have to get a fluid down the middle of it. So it has to be hollow. So by virtue of that, it has to be thicker. The acupuncture needles are solid, so solid stainless steel. And so they can be a lot thinner. So you don't really feel them. They kind of ease into the skin. They don't, we tap them through a tube or ease them in freehand, um, but you don't feel them. Some people might feel an ache where the needle is. That means it's working on that area or what that point represents. Um, sometimes you might feel a little bit of an ouch, but it's really nothing. It's not like a shot at all. Yeah, I probably shouldn't say that, but there sometimes you'll feel something, a little bit of an ouch at certain points. Then it's just you say ouch or something, and then we just move it a little bit. It might have got stuck in the skin or something. But the majority of the time, no, you don't feel anything. You might feel that jump. So that
Mhm.
surprises some people with the jump of your own muscle. But yeah, usually, I mean, that's why you see these amazing pictures and you're like, oh my gosh, this person's laying with 20 needles in them. That looks so shocking. But the reason they can lay there and actually relax is because the needles don't hurt. They're just placed there. There's no blood. They just go millimeters through the skin. And yeah, most people fall asleep during a treatment because it's that relaxing.
Mhm.
And that seems weird too. You're like, oh, needles, why would you relax? I've only had, I think in the 20 years, I've only had 2 people who couldn't do the acupuncture, and that was mostly because of their own fears. They were so afraid of the needles that they would say ouch before the needle's in.
Mm.
So I just suggested, I don't think this is the treatment for you. You're not relaxing, it's too fearful. Maybe, PT or massage would help you better because then you can relax. So
Mhm.
that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and I'm glad that you explained that because you obviously have a much broader experience with a lot more people. I only have
Mhm.
my personal experience, with it, so I wanted you to be able to share that with, a broader understanding of more people's
Mhm.
experience with that than
Mhm.
just my own.
Right.
Um,
Some people can actually feel something moving or changing, or they're
oh,
aware of something happening. Or
mm,
like you said, your muscle felt like it went, ah,
yeah.
or and I think that's people kind of tapping into what their chi. Um, Other people, aren't as aware of their body, which is fine too. It's still working. But
Mhm.
yeah, some people feel, oh wow, that's interesting. That's something different. But something's happening, which I think is
Mhm.
pretty cool.
I think it's amazing, yeah, well, I always go back to that, when you don't understand something, it's like the light bulb thing where or
Mhm.
electricity in your house, it's like, I don't have to know how the electricity works,
Right.
someone knows, but I don't have to know that. All I have to
Right.
know is that when I flip on the light switch, the light comes on.
Yes. Yes,
So,
that's true.
if I flip on the light here and the light comes on, and if I go to acupuncture and I feel better, that's what matters to me.
To me too, even though I know
Mhm,
more of the science. I mean,
mhm,
there's more and more research that it does work, but it's very difficult. Most of the research is in China, and it's subjective. So it's like, oh, people feel better or the symptoms get better. But if you do a study, it's hard to show because the treatments are individualized for each person. But to
mhm,
do a study, it has to be exactly the same for everybody. Well, that's not
yeah,
how the medicine works. So, and that's actually the strength of it is that it is individualized. So even if you and I had the same ailment, it's going to be slightly changed because we're different people, um,
mhm.
different ages, different backgrounds, different maybe I don't know muscle or whatever. Um, so the research is hard, but now I forgot my point. Sorry. Um,
No, that's perfect because you're absolutely right. We're different, which is kinda goes
mhm,
back to what I had said even in the very beginning of this episode, and that is that I had to go through a couple different people. It
mhm,
wasn't acupuncture that wasn't working,
mhm,
it was the technique, and it was the
mhm,
technique on my body, and so I could
mhm,
fully
mhm,
understand and see why
mhm.
a, study would be so hard to show,
Right.
consistency or like,
Right.
um, I don't know what the terminology is, but like,
Mhm,
having a study group of 20 people or whatever and getting
mhm.
consistent results.
Right.
They're all different people. So,
Right. They're different
yeah.
people. You can't tailor for a study, you don't tailor it different for each person.
Mhm,
Whereas if it were reality, you would be tailoring it different for each person.
mhm,
Um, so the subjective studies that were done in China, I mean, there's 2,000-3,000 years of textbooks that say, oh, this works. If someone has this kind of cough, do this. And then if the cough changes to be more wet or dry, then do this. And, so there's that kind of studies, but they didn't do scientific method, where everything has to be the same, a double-blind randomized study. So that's what's challenging. We can't do the Western studies for acupuncture, but yet I've seen people come in and get better. So to me, I'm like, that's fine. That works. I've treated animals. I've seen dogs come in and they're limping, and then they go out and they're not limping. So dogs don't have a concept that, oh, I want to please her. I want to pretend like I feel better. No, they don't care. They either walk or they don't.
Yeah. That's a great, analogy to it. I love that.
Uh-huh.
Um,
Yeah.
so if there's a runner who comes in, we've talked a little bit about like it being a great maintenance, right? So some people will use it for maintenance. Is it? I think from our conversation, do you think that there's one better time to use acupuncture than another, like for an acute injury versus a maintenance, or does it really matter?
Both are good.
Mhm.
So ideally, you want somebody to come in for health. So just like you eat right, you exercise, most runners are into taking care of their health. That's the best way. So preventative care. And then that would be just, a couple of weeks in the beginning to get you back to your best self, and then once a month. Now, if you do have an acute injury, say you fell, you twisted your ankle, we're going to need to step it up. So we can help your body heal more quickly. You can get back to running and doing what you love. So then you want to step it up, come a little more often, and then go back to the maintenance. Because ideally, I want to get rid of all my patients, which means they get better. They don't need it as often. And I miss them, but that's the point. I don't want them to have to do it forever, only for wellness, like taking care of yourself. That's fine. But it's not like being on medicine where okay, now you get to take it for the rest of your life. No, let's get you better, or at least get you to a point where you're the best you can be without further intervention. If you don't want to, then, and you can do the things you enjoy. You can pick up your grandkids. You can go running. You can, I don't know, digest the food that you like.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. No, I love that. That's fantastic. I liked how you shared like the difference between it, and then just, something happens, then you kind of step it up a little, but then you want, the goal is to get back to maintenance. So,
right, right,
and so
yeah.
I guess along those same lines, if someone has a big race coming up, so, not just some, small, like a big race, like
Qualifying
what
for
they're
the Boston
really,
Marathon or
yeah,
something.
exactly. They have big goals. They have a big race coming up, like a marathon,
Mhm.
something.
Yeah.
How would they fit acupuncture into that training schedule and then the race?
Mhm,
Like, do you go
mhm,
all throughout your training? Do you step it
mhm,
up at the end? Do
mhm,
you back off? Like, how do you incorporate
mhm,
that into like a big
mhm,
training
mhm.
plan?
So kind of like training with the running, you want to go, well, it's usually, you want to, in the beginning, it's going to be kind of steady, maybe once a week.
Mhm.
If you
Mhm.
have little niggly things as you up the mileage, okay, then let's address that so that it doesn't become something bigger. And then as you're getting closer to the race, we're going to want to keep building more of your chi and blood so that you have the energy. Um, Also, I want to put in there too, it's better to come after your workout, the harder workouts. You don't want to do a hard workout uh, after. So you want the acupuncture after the hard workout.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
Um, so the reason for that is that the hard workout will change the chi in your body. So do your long run. I remember you used to come after your 10 milers and then
Yep.
come in. And besides, you get to take a nap, then we'll replenish you. And then closer to race time, if anything's bugging you, we can come in more often. Say if, you tend towards plantar fasciitis or something. Okay, let's make sure you don't get that. But if you're doing okay, once a week is fine. But if you're starting to feel some tension, something that might go wonky, okay, let's do a couple times that week. But you're cutting back on running anyway, so then it would be okay. Afterwards, maybe a couple days off, and then we can do building you back up because you're probably depleted, chi and blood wise. Yeah.
So once you're done with the marathon, then
Mhm.
is it good to go, right back to acupuncture like within a day or two, or is that when you wait the couple days?
I would wait a couple days.
Mm-hmm.
You could come in right away, especially if you injured yourself. Hopefully you didn't, but your body needs rest. So rest a couple, same with surgery,
Mm-hmm.
rest for a couple of days, then you can come in.
Mm-hmm.
Don't worry about driving anywhere or, I don't know, appointments. You just need rest and food and water.
Yeah.
And to pat
All
yourself
are
on the back
correct.
because you won and all that kind of good stuff.
Yes, all those things. You're like listing them off and like, yep, yep, yep.
Yeah. Now, I mean, if you live in a small town and it's not a big deal, yeah, come on in. But you still do need to rest afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, pat yourself on the back for doing it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I agree. Yes, I mean that is quite the distance. But I mean, I
Mhm.
think the same could be said for like even a half marathon. It really depends on
Right.
where that runner
On
is,
the
right, in their
Exactly.
fitness.
Right.
That could
Or your
be.
first 10K. I remember
Oh
I was
yeah.
wiped out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I mean,
and I
any
was
any
young.
endurance distance.
Yes, and as we get older as women, the endurance can get a little more challenging because as we grow older, we get a little more blood deficient. Um, I'll just say that. So it doesn't mean you
Mm-hmm.
have anemia. It just means we get a little more deficient as we get older as women. So
Mm-hmm.
then we do need to build you up a little more.
Mm-hmm.
After a period, you can be more depleted and fatigued. Some women feel better, but that's a whole nother story. But in general, women get more dry, more hot, more depleted as they get older. So we need to build you
Mm-hmm.
up, especially if you're running, because running burns the blood. Um, yeah, it burns the blood. Even though you feel like when I run, I have more energy afterwards, and I always have, but it
Mm-hmm.
still did burn a lot of my blood too. So now
Mm-hmm.
I get to deal with it. But anyway,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, no, I totally understand because I noticed that after my long runs, not so much my
Uh-huh.
midweek runs, but like especially like
Mhm.
my long runs,
Mhm.
I will be in the car on the way home and I'm like,
Mhm.
yeah, I'm feeling energized. I got all this
Yes,
energy.
yes,
I'm so excited. And then I
right.
get home and I might still have a bit of that. It's almost like adrenaline.
Yes.
And then I take the
Runner's high.
shower
Uh-huh.
and get a little food, and then as the day goes on, it's like I start to get real sleepy. But at first,
Yeah,
I feel like I can take on the world. I'm making all these
right,
plans for the rest of my day that, of
right.
course, don't happen.
Yeah, you just need to rest. I think your body kind of says, okay, shut down. I need to rest and replenish. I need to spend some energy on building blood and then you can
Mhm,
think or do. But for
mhm,
now, you just have to
mhm,
replenish it. And the herbs do
mhm,
that. Good nutrition does that. Sleep does that.
mhm.
Acupuncture, of course, does that. Um,
Yeah.
but the long run too, because with my medicine, I'm looking at the long run. I'm
Mm,
looking at people from 20s to 80s or something. So if you're in your 40s and running, then I want to keep you replenished so you can keep running for many years. And also, once you do hit menopause or something, that you don't have a horrible crash
mm,
um, like I did.
mhm.
So
Yeah.
just just keep you healthy and be your best
Mhm.
self.
Yeah, well, and I think that's what we're trying to do here,
Mhm.
right? It's
Yeah,
especially like with what I talk about every week when I talk about
mhm.
plant-based nutrition, we talk
Right.
about, running and strength
Mhm.
training, and now we talk about acupuncture. So,
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah.
the whole body, that's really like my primary goal with my listeners is to help them really focus, and all my coaching clients too, just to help focus on the whole person. It's not
Exactly.
just qualifying for a race. We want to
Mhm.
qualify for a race, but we want to feel good doing it and,
Mhm. And
have the rest
after.
of our life and after. Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, and be able to run for your entire life or, as long as you
Yes.
want to. Uh,
Hmm. Yes.
so get those any injuries taken care of properly and yeah, and then yeah, nutrition plays a huge part also. So
Hmm.
um yeah. So that
Hmm.
is part of it as well. And the strength
Yeah.
training too. I was lucky enough to start strength training in college. And that plays a big part too for balancing the body because we all have our, we're not even on both sides. So we all have our little things that we do. Or, if you love to run, your upper body might need some more attention because you're not doing enough there
Hmm.
to balance.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. I love your message. It's exactly what that's why we get along so well. We have to be
I
quiet
know.
in
We're
the
the
in the
same.
room.
Yes, it's true.
We go we go on and on about that. Um, so, I mean, is there anything that we haven't covered that I just kinda overlooked that you're like, "Hey, Valerie, we have to cover this."
I don't think so. I mean, all athletes can benefit from acupuncture, which I
Mhm.
mean, I know this is focused on runners, but other sports too, like dancers. I
I have
treat a lot of
I
dancers.
have, I know for a fact I
Yeah.
have, swimmers, I have
Oh yes.
bikers,
Mm-hmm.
so
Mm-hmm.
absolutely,
Mm-hmm.
there are listeners that I know to the podcast that are doing other
Mm-hmm.
sports that aren't running, but they love to
Mm-hmm.
listen, like, for all of the, overall general health information.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think that's it. I don't have any other
Well, I
burning
really
questions or answers.
appreciate it. I love this conversation so much, and
Yeah.
thank you for being my first guest.
You're welcome. Thank you for asking me. I'm so excited.
Well, as usual, we had such a good time just chatting and talking that it's been like an
Yes.
hour.
Oh, yeah. That's okay.
So that's the I mean, welcome, people, everybody, listeners to, our chat.
Yes. Yes. And
I
thank
do
you
hope, though,
again.
that our listeners did get a lot out of this today, and
Mhm.
I think that everyone did because I even learned, quite a bit of new information too. So that's always the goal, right? To learn
Right.
more.
Mhm.
And
Absolutely.
so I do wanna let everyone know, though, that, Dr. Julie is in San Diego, and, her center is the Rejuvenation Health Center or Center for Health?
Rejuvenation Healing Center.
Healing
Mhm.
Center, I'm sorry.
That's
So I
okay.
should have let you say that.
Yeah, that's
But I
okay.
did put all the information in the show notes. And so, if you'd like to reach out to Dr. Julie, if you're in the San Diego area, please do that. Are you taking new patients?
Yes, I am.
Okay,
Mhm.
perfect.
Yeah.
So she is taking new patients and she is available. So I hope that you will reach out to her if you are in the area. And otherwise, are you on social media or any of those other places that people can reach
Not
out to you?
yet. I'm trying to be better. You are encouraging me with yours. So,
Okay. All right, no problem. But you do have a website, and I will be sharing that.
yes, yes, rejuveheal.com. And yeah, so hopefully I will be
All
doing
right.
some talks too, or I'll come back on yours if you want me.
Lovely. I would love to have you back. I'm sure that we'll get, plenty of people wanting to know more information because we didn't even touch on hormones, which I know is another area of specialty of yours.
Mhm.
So, maybe
Yeah,
that is episode number 2.
yeah. Or if people have questions, they can write into you.
Perfect. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, I hope that you will take Dr. Julie's advice and write into me and join me on social media.
Yeah.
And send me your questions or comments or anything about the episode. And if you haven't liked the show yet on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere else that you listen to the show, please give it a like and subscribe. I would truly appreciate that. And in the meantime, thank you so much, Dr. Julie.
Thank
And as
you.
I close out every episode, everyone go and run your best life on carbs. I'm Coach Val. This is Dr. Julie. And I'd
Bye.
like to wish you a very happy rest of your day. And we will see you next week. Take care.